Welcome, everyone, and it's a joy to have you here at Elmhurst University. I'm Scott Matheny, the University Chaplain, and this is our series of Faith Over Fear. And in specifics today, we're talking about what matters to me and why, and from a Lutheran perspective. It's a joy to have you here at 4 o'clock. And to help us with this conversation, we have four wonderful people. One you know quite well, Lorraine Sheeler, who is the president of our Spiritual Life Council. She's a sophomore in the university undergraduate program and helps lead us in all kinds of ways. One of our co-chaplains for the university, Lutheran co-chaplain, Reverend Anna Ernst, who is part of the pastoral team just down on Spring Street at Epiphany Lutheran. She's joining us today also to bring greetings and reflections and thoughts. And our own Vice President of Academic Affairs and Dean of the Faculty, Dr. Dean Primanal. Dean is a part of our life and here, and we are so thankful that you're joining us. All three of them come out of a deep Lutheran perspective, and our fourth person that joins to join us, Sue Rothmeyer, who was a campus minister and then in charge of all of campus ministry nationally for the ELCA, and then was elected last summer to be the secretary of the denomination. She sent greetings, but regrets this morning because of some work at the National Church. And so we need to send blessings and strength to her. But we have three wonderful folks that sit in a place of perspective and history and faith. And some of you hear me saying this all the time, that there are big questions and worthy dreams. And that this question, what matters to me and why, is rooted in that question, that book of Sharon Parks, who the university has given an honorary degree to. And so we wanted to open the conversation up on what matters to me and why from these three wonderful individuals. And we are taping today. So if you want to have something said and taped, type or tape it and let us know. But we are taping this so other people can listen to it down the road. And it is that sense of expectancy and joy, even in the midst of the pandemic, where our sense of who we are as human beings gets tested, but also finds joy and strength. And so to help us get started, we asked our co-chaplain, Reverend Anna Ernst, to get us started. And she'll do about a 5 to 7 minute conversation with us that'll lead into Lorraine, that'll lead into our third person, Dr. Dean. Anna, thank you for joining us. Please.
Thank you, Scott, and hello, everybody. It's great to see you. And, one of my favorite little things to do here on the south side of Elmhurst is pop over to the north side and, go to Brew Point Coffee and the library and things like that and stop by the college. And I haven't been able to do that as much because of the pandemic as we're trying to isolate. So I'm grateful to Chaplain Scott for the opportunity. Always wishing I could do more with the college, but I hope we'll get there soon. I've been at Epiphany a little more than 3 years now, and Scott was so warm and welcoming our staff to the office about a month or two after I started, and I've just always been grateful for his leadership. So Scott, I thank you for that. I love everything that I've seen about Elmhurst College, now University, and especially lessons and carols. Our whole staff attended last year's service, and it was just wonderful. And lots of our folks go regularly too. And I wanted to memorialize the fact that I knew Elmhurst University when it was Elmhurst College. So last spring I went to the bookstore and I got just a plain Elmhurst Blue Jays shirt, but then I also got this clock that says Elmhurst College on it because it was on sale. But I was like, I want to have something that said Elmhurst College. I just want to memorialize that transition. So this will also be my timekeeping clock for today. So there's some Blue Jay pride in this office, even though I'm only a fan from the local side of things. I just want you all to know that. Like I said, I've been at Epiphany 3 years here. I am associate pastor. My colleague Ron Feltman is senior pastor. He's been here about 12 years, 15 years. And I thought I'd speak just briefly about, as briefly as possible, about a little bit about my background and what brought me to Elmhurst, and a little bit about Epiphany's background, since that might be new to some of us on the call here. And then kind of where I'm at now with our things that have been important to me as a student and as a leader and as a pastor, and kind of where we're all at with this right now. So I grew up in Chevy Chase, Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. I went to Oberlin College in Oberlin, Ohio, very similar to Elmhurst in many ways, I would say. And I am a violinist. That was like my big thing as a kid. And I was thinking about working in a music nonprofit when I graduated, but I didn't really know what I was doing. Dean Pribino mentioned, we were talking before, that you're a pastor's kid. I am a pastor's grand kid. My grandfather on my mother's side is was Lutheran ordained pastor. And he always wanted someone to go into seminary, and it was one of the last things he told me before he died. And at the time I was a junior in college. So Lorraine, about your age, I guess. And I said to him, there's no way. I had been active in our church community, but I didn't really see how it could connect to the rest of the world. I appreciated my family history, but something wasn't clicking for me in terms of how it could be a career. And then when I graduated from Oberlin, the recession of 2008 was still very much affecting the job market, and nonprofit jobs were very hard to come by. So I ended up doing a year of service with a program called Lutheran Volunteer Corps, and serving at 2 small congregations in the downtown areas of Omaha in Nebraska. Just did a year of service there. And I told myself when I started that year that I would do that year of service and be done with it. And then I would figure out what I really wanted to do. But my position title was Community Outreach Associate, and I was tasked with trying to connect the community and get my congregations to be excited about serving their community more actively in different ways. And as I did the job more and more, I realized that turned out my grandpa was right. Like, maybe going into seminary and becoming a pastor would be a good fit for me after all, because I realized that the work of the church and the work of faith is very relevant to the world around us. We don't always just do the best job sometimes as Christians and people of faith as telling that story and making that clear. So I decided that was one of the reasons I wanted to go into ministry, was to be a part of that. I worked another job for a few years, and I graduated from the Lutheran School of Theology at Chicago here in Hyde Park in 2017, so near University of Chicago. And I was very lucky that I was not ready to leave Chicagoland yet for my first official pastor job, and the bishop took me here and ended up in our synod here in Elmhurst. And so for those of you who don't know too much about Epiphany, we had our first service in December 1924 at Lincoln Elementary School down here on the south side of town. So we're coming up in a few years on our 100th anniversary, close to the corner of Spring and Villette. And the church has been getting bigger and bigger and bigger ever since the first worship service at Lincoln. And we are in the middle of a new renovation right now, redoing our parking lot, making our building more handicapped accessible, kind of bringing things firmly into the 21st century. So that's a really good thing. We see about, on a non-COVID time, we see about 200 to 250 people over a weekend, over 3 services. And we have our biggest service is 9:30 a.m. on Sundays, where we have our Sunday school for grades K through 6 and other Christian ed opportunities. And we have a mixture of a praise band and organ being traditional in a lot of Lutheran churches, but our praise band being very important to the Epiphany community as well. Very proud to share that we employ multiple Elmhurst current students or alumni as our musicians, and they're absolutely wonderful. We love them so much. Clay Corso, who recently graduated, is our current organist and pianist, and he's been recording music for us to use for our online services right now, and we just love working with him and with all of our band guys and all of our folks that we work with. Some of the things that are really important to Epiphany, as I already mentioned, music and worship and preaching and study and the message, right? And Christian education, and really trying to connect our faith to the world around us and to help us understand it and be grounded. The congregation also has a passion for community outreach, even though since I've gotten here, we're still trying to figure out what the best fit for our outreach project is, but we are one of several congregations that hosts Grace Cafe, again in a non-pandemic year, which I'm sure some of you have heard of, and the congregation loves that. So any opportunity we have to share hospitality, special donation drives, we do that, and we try to get ourselves out in the community as well. We've volunteered for Habitat for Humanity and things like that. So for those who might be interested in visiting Epiphany someday, I just want to say that one of our best qualities is that we strive to make everyone that comes in the building feel welcome and feel comfortable, and that's probably one of our greatest strengths. And that's what's really bringing me a lot of comfort these days, is the caringness of our community. We are a community that identifies politically differently. We are not uniform there. We are different in age, in terms of our membership, and yet there's a importance in creating a sense of hospitality and care there. Scott, I think I'm going to pause there. I have a little more I could say, but I'll pause. I have, when we do.
Sure, we can let you stop. We'll go to Lorraine, and when we come back, what does matter to you, and
Yes.
why? Try to think through how to help push that so that we can get the joy of what matters to Anna.
I have that why. Part.
Good,
I'm gonna pause here so we get everybody time to introduce
themselves.
Let's
get Lorraine in here and let her have her time now too. Lorraine, please.
Hi everyone. I'm Lorraine Schuler. I'm a junior psychology and religious studies major with a minor in social work. And I'm the SLC president, so Spiritual Life Council president on campus. One of the biggest things that I work for, and a lot of times I am trying to do, is community. My upbringing, I was born and raised throughout the ELCA Lutheran Church. I was baptized and confirmed, and I worked and I did a lot of different things. I even had a job at my home church for a while during my first and second year of high school. Obviously, during college, it's obviously changed with COVID. I've been part of teaching Sunday school. I've done a lot of different things in my church community to help and do outreach to other people. One of the biggest things for me is being a part of something that's bigger than just myself. And I feel like that throughout my whole childhood, I was able to do that, from being a part of church choirs to getting to serve communion on Christmas and Easter and different holidays, and being part of that, or helping to set up for Christmas services or different things. It brought me so much joy in a different sense. And that really led me to be called to do what I'm going to be doing in life, and to be able to work in a hospital someday and work with people through ministry, and to use the gifts that I've found throughout life to do that. I think that just the sense of community that I have at my home church has been super important to me, and that's one of the big things that matters to me. My church family has always been there for me. For example, after my sophomore year of high school, I had to have jaw surgery. And so I had both my jaws wired shut. And just through the whole healing process of that, I was amazed by all the people that reached out to me and gave me cards or phone calls or prayers. It just that outpouring of support and love that I felt from everyone was something that I had never ever felt before. And it was truly amazing. And that's something that I really have tried to put into my work on campus currently. So SLC, if you guys don't know about it, it's all about interfaith work to help educate different people about different religions, faiths, and also those who may not be specifically one religion or are unsure about their beliefs. So we've been working to bring people together in that sense, and it's all about education. So being able to share at like an event like this is great because I'm being able to share like my personal story, but I also get to see how other people's beliefs are part of that. And I think that that's really important, that we all are aware that there are a bunch of different people who have different beliefs, but that doesn't matter because we're all the same in the sense that we're all children of God in that sense. So it's very important for me to make sure that that's clear on campus, but also for you guys just to be able to get involved with more things on campus. So that's a brief introduction of me. If someone else would want to go.
If you're done, Lorraine, that's okay. Is that all you want to offer now?
I can say more, but if someone else would like to talk.
So we'll go to Dean. How's that? I mean, the third person for our presentation today is our Dean, and we look forward to your words, Dean.
All right, thank you so much, Scott, and Anna Lorraine, thank you for sharing your comments and things. I look forward to hearing more in the Q&A. So, well, like a good pastor's kid, I could probably go on for a long time. So I thought it was important that I write my comments down so I didn't go on. And I did time it, Scott, so I think I'm okay. But
thank you.
So, well, what matters to me is living an authentic life anchored in care for and service to those in the world around me. Or put more simply, I say it's to determine my part or my calling to leave the world better than I found it. And why does that matter to me? Well, I think we all have our narratives, and we've heard some of those today, and these narratives really matter. So let me explain what you might want to know about me that might help you understand why this matters to me. So my father is a Lutheran minister who is 88 and a half years old and continues to serve in a small parish. My mother was, for the most part, a stay-at-home mom who loved her 6 kids, loved being a pastor's wife, and was a faithful servant to the end. I spent most of my formative years in a small town in Iowa, where running around the church was my favorite pastime. And though we moved to Wisconsin when I was a junior in high school, I returned to attend Luther College in Decorah, Iowa, where I majored in English. The memories of my youth mostly center on the church, on my faith, and on family. And there's one thing that connects those 3 memories that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. It's music. Music, wrote Martin Luther, is to be praised as second only to the word of God, because by her all the emotions are swayed. And someone else said to sing is to pray twice. And I think that's attributed to St. Augustine, but others have said that's not right. But anyways, it's out there. And I don't know whoever deserves credit for this reference. The point for me is that music has been and continues to be foundational and formational in my Lutheran spiritual development. While she was alive, there was nothing that brought my mother more joy in life than to have our entire family together and making music. But my faith tradition, my parents modeled for me early on that we are all called to serve. And I witnessed it regularly through active servanthood and care for others, lifelong learning and reflection on the world around us. I can remember distinctively going on crop walks and delivering meals and furniture to those in need, witnessing my father speaking out on behalf of others and taking stands, all different ways really of engaging with and learning about and being in community with the other. Though I shouldn't be, I'm still surprised when my father, who I mentioned is over 88 years old, stops by the house to drop off his copies of the Progressive magazine and Mother Jones magazine when he's done reading them. His life has really been a model of discernment for me. of stewardship and of care for others. Love God, love your neighbor, and leave this place better than you found it. That's been an abiding theme I've witnessed, and it matters to me. Leave this place better than you found it. But what is our role in this seemingly straightforward task? What are we called to do, our vocation? What I was always so impressed with in my father was that he seemed to have this confidence in his calling. And it really wasn't until later in my adult life that I learned that he struggled too with doubts and uncertainties, with the restlessness that accompanies us when something just doesn't feel right. And so I too have struggled with that restlessness. I think many of us have. And I thought a lot about my purpose. What was I supposed to be doing? And it wasn't until I aged that I became more consciously aware of the concept of vocation in my personal and professional life. Theologian Frederick Buechner, who many of you maybe have read, describes vocation as the place where your deep gladness meets the world's deep need. Sounds easy, right? Hardly. I'm a big fan of Parker Palmer as well. And in his book, Let Your Life Speak, Listening for the Voice of Vocation, he tells us that, quote, the deepest vocational question is not what ought I to do with my life? It is the more elemental and demanding, who am I? What is my nature? And he goes on to say, today I understand vocation quite differently, not as a goal to be achieved, but as a gift to be received. Discovering vocation does not mean scrambling towards some prize just because my reach, but accepting the treasure of true self I already possess. Vocation does not come from a voice out there calling me to become something I'm not. It comes from a voice in here calling me to be the person I was born to be, to fulfill the original selfhood given me at birth by God. Well, it's taken me a long time to grow into this more accurate and realistic understanding of vocation. That vocation isn't a goal, some high sought after standard of how I'm supposed to live my life, comparing myself to others. Rather, it's doing the hard work, sometimes exhilarating, always messy, of sitting with the questions, who am I? What is my nature? And whose am I? And so for me, vocation isn't reserved for those called to the priesthood, unless we're referring to the communion of saints. And it isn't some striving for an unattainable goal. And it isn't even an end in itself. It's really a process that requires, most essentially, Parker Palmer reminds us, listening. He says, I must listen to my life and try to understand what it's truly about, quite apart from what I would like it to be about, or my life will never represent anything real in the world, no matter how earnest my intentions. So listening, paying attention, seemingly simple tasks, but so challenging. And I must remind myself constantly in this process of discernment that people are not what they do, but as Martin Luther reminds us, what God calls them. So what matters to me is that I'm continuously discerning my vocation, my calling in this world. It's an endless process, really, and to live an authentic life and make the world a better place. And because I'm a Lutheran, an element of that calling is toward reformation, toward seeking to reform the world in ways guided by the Gospels. To love God, serve my neighbor, to do justice, to love kindness, and walk humbly with my God. So despite what many may think, this is really radical in the face of our contemporary world. Who am I and who am I becoming? What are the needs of the world? What's my role in building that just society? These are really radical vocation questions. And these are questions of change, of reform, of deep soul searching, perhaps gut-wrenching discernment, and that's why they matter. But determining what matters to us is really hard work, and especially in a world that is full of both good and evil. But I love this passage from Buechner, and it's a passage that gives me, and I hope it gives all of us, a little bit of hope. He writes, the world is full of dark shadows, to be sure, but the world without, both the world without and the world within. And the road we've set off on is long and hard and often hard to find, but the word is trust. Trust the deepest intuitions of your own heart. Trust the source of your truest gladness. Trust the road. And I guess I'd conclude, trust the Creator. So thank you for this opportunity to talk a little bit about what matters to me and why, and I really look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Dean. I'm struck with the fact that we've got a wonderful young pastor in a local church, a fabulous junior in the university, thank you, Lorraine, and our dean of faculty. And maybe can we go back to Anna, because I know you had some more things to offer in light of your own sense of mattering and why. And then we can go into a conversation, because I do think there's all kinds of stuff that we can start to play with.
Yeah.
And you all can ask each other. So, but Anna, please come on back in.
Well, it's yeah, great to be able to come back after hearing Lorraine and our dean here. Lorraine talking about the importance of community and lifting each other up. And I would suggest that sometimes it feels like that's not something that happens as much as we want it to in the greater world. But you know, when we see an example of that, sometimes it does, and we give thanks for that. But that's great. And then listening is so key. I think there are two concepts that matter to me very, very much as a Lutheran pastor, as a Christian Lutheran pastor. Christian, one important concept is Imago Dei, the idea that we're all made in the image of God. And in these times, I've found that is a very difficult thing for us to really internalize and remember sometimes, when there's so much anger and distrust that is present. And it is truly just a very difficult thing to hold on to. And I've seen that in my congregation recently as well, some tension there. And a way that I feel that I strive to let faith be my guide and not fear is by really intentionally making sure I listen to those who are different from me, and getting curious about why they might think about something differently than I do. If somebody has a concern with something that I raise in a sermon, it's really important for me that I listen to them and try to understand that. Because if I believe that every human is made in the image of God, then that means that I believe that every person has goodness in them, and that I have goodness in me too, and it matters that we share that. The Lutheran concept that matters to me is this concept that Martin Luther articulated of being saved by grace through faith apart from works. And that is helpful to me as someone who has wrestled with, we'll say a generalized anxiety disorder is the clinical term, not as severe as some, but a significant anxiety issue that has been present with me, especially since I was in college. And understanding the fact that I'm loved, even if I don't make that A on that class, or if I don't put in as many volunteer hours as I thought I should, has always been something that's really important to me. And a Bible passage that reminds me of that is from Luke chapter 12, verse 22, where Jesus says to his disciples, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear," and goes on to talk about how God gives us good things like lilies and birds and things, and takes care of us. And that was a comfort to me ever since college, and has been a comfort to me now, even in these times. So those are some things.
Yay, great, thank you, Anna. So would the three of you like to offer any kind of comment or question? And I see somebody, I said, thank you, I identify with that, Anna, in the text side. We all know about anxiety, especially right now, but how do we care for each other?
Yeah.
Lorraine, Dean, any commentary you'd like to offer to each other before we keep letting others keep coming in?
Go ahead, Dean, if you want.
Oh,
yeah.
I was just going to say thank you to my co-panelists, I guess, here for the kind of personal sharing and things like that. I mean, I pick up, I mean, these themes are here of community and goodness and light. And I think about that a lot, how And I know I refer to Parker Palmer probably way too much, but if you haven't read this book, Let Your Life Speak, it's a small book. I really encourage it. He talks in that book really openly about how it took him going into a darkness, a really depth of depression, in order for him to sort of break through that. And he still lives with it, obviously, but it just, what that meant for him and his comfort with self and understanding sort of his purpose and things. And so I just and Ann, I really love this notion of, you know, we're not who we are, we're not what we do.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
we are good enough because we are children of God and created in that image, and that message is so powerful, I think. So
Thanks. Yeah. Easier said than done sometimes, right?
Big time.
That's where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah.
So it's like that deep spiritual work that you got to do in your own, you know, that's all I'll say.
Maybe you all could think about this because all three of you have talked about, and it does reflect back on Parker Palmer's great book, the journey inward, the journey outward. And to help us understand that process, what does the journey inward and the journey outward look like for each of you? I heard it all along in all three of you. I heard how you dug deep, and also it manifested itself outward. In Lorraine going to hospital work.
Yeah.
In Anna going into ordination. In Dean going into academic affairs and teaching, and all those pieces have a reflection of inward journey and outward journey.
Yeah. Lorraine, your jaw story, and just, I can only imagine how like just difficult and awkward and like frustrating that was. And, you know, the community really lifted you up there, right?
Yeah, I think that truly, like, in my life was a huge turning point for me personally, and like what really matters in my life, because it showed me how people can be so supportive, and people that I didn't even know were that supportive towards me. And that really motivated me to, in the future, be part of that, or be that person for more people. And that's one of the reasons why I want to work in a hospital. And so I think that that's like really important. And I think that's even more important in the time that we're in right now, of COVID and the pandemic. And we all really need to show support to each other, because we're all dealing with different things. But in a sense, we're all dealing with the same thing of this pandemic. And it's really important for us to show support and love towards each other in this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this connection to community is such a interesting one for me, especially, you know, we see this obviously now in our political environment, where it's so easy to demonize the other when we hold them at a distance. And it's only when we're willing to engage often with that other that we come to a different sort of understanding. And I've always believed that that learning and understanding is relational. We come to know ourselves. We come to know the world through our relationships. And it's that interactive. It's just it's my epistemological view. It's how I understand, you know, knowledge is created. It's how I understand we come to understand ourselves. And I mean, my entry into academic affairs specifically came through my study and work with service learning programs. And one of the most powerful pieces of that, I think, is we can sit in a classroom and read a book and think about the other sort of out there at a distance and draw these, you know, conclusions and assumptions. And it's not until we actually come face to face with that, or sit with or serve with others, that we that we understand the nuances and the textures and the depth of these individuals, and it becomes much more difficult to demonize or to draw these sort of sweeping conclusions about the other when we come to know them in a much more personal way. And so I think that concept of community, while it can sound flowery and apple pie-ish, I mean, when practiced right, it's really, community it's not always easy. It's really,
Yeah.
it's bumpy and it's messy and it's just, but if you stick with it, I think that's, you get to have an experience like what you had, Lorraine, with that community surrounding you. So.
Yeah, totally agree. Sounds very flowery. Actually living it out is a different thing.
Yep.
So as we were gathering, to all of you who are here with us, I said to our three participants, I might ask them a question like, what gives you hope? And I'll give you a little bit of time to think about that in a second. I would love for your response, because I do think that's at root some of the questions. And here's a response that I got 2 days ago from one of our community members here on campus, that the specialness of Elmhurst is not the place, it's the people. And it has been in that revelation of the brokenness and the life-threatening illnesses and the frustration with the elections that the person was able to say to me, and they're youngish, that it was not the place, but it was the relational piece. And that for me speaks volumes about how do we help nurture in an academic institution with rigor and demands relationships. So that it's not just a family, because it is a business. There's a business side to this institution. We all know that. How do we think about what gives us hope? And I was stunned when this person said to me, it's not the place, Scott, it's the people. And, at one level, I know that. At another level, it was like my gut. But what gives you hope?
Well, I can second that because, for most of you know, but some of you don't, my first day at Elmhurst was March 12th. And the first meeting of my first day was deciding that we were going to be going to remote learning. And so I was in the office for 7 days and then gone, basically for 3 months. So this is how I've come to know Elmhurst. It's not, I get to be on campus here. I'm on campus right now a little bit, but anybody who's here knows the campus life is not the same as what it used to be. And so I have come to know Elmhurst through the people and through this medium, which is interesting. But I was gonna just, when you prepped us, Scott, and told us you'd be asking this question, I texted my wife, Chris, who's actually on the call, Chris Mickelson down there. She's not showing herself, but and I said, text me a picture of that poem I have on the refrigerator, or the excerpt I have on the refrigerator. It's and I've had it on every refrigerator as I've moved probably for the last 10 years or more, but it's an excerpt from Journey of the Heart by Gerhard Frost. And it's called Grounds for Hope. And I read this as often as I can because and it speaks about light. It says, quote, he says, if I'm asked, what are my grounds for hope? This is my answer. Light is Lord over darkness. Truth is Lord over falsehood. And life is ever Lord over death. He said, of all the facts I daily live with, there's none more comforting than this. If I have 2 rooms, one dark, the other light, and I open the door between them, the dark room becomes lighter without the light becoming darker. I know this is no headline, he says, but it's a marvelous footnote, and God comforts me in that. And so and my takeaway from that is be light. Don't be darkness in the world, be light. And that we have an opportunity for that in the simplest ways, simplest daily ways to be that light for your neighbor, for anybody that you encounter along the road is just an opportunity for that. But and that image, you open it, you're right. One becomes lighter without the other becoming darker. What a simple yet kind of profound image of that. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's my answer, Scott.
Lorraine, Anna, anybody else? Someone has just typed in, remind me of Matthew 5:14. So obviously the text that you read reminding, but any other responses?
Lorraine, are you ready?
I can.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I think the thing that like reminds me of hope, especially just like in this time, one of the first times that like during quarantine I left the house, like didn't leave the house, but like went in the car and like drove somewhere. I drove by Edward Hospital, which I live by, and they had been putting like flowers out of all the people who had recovered from COVID. And so to see that image gave me so much hope. Even in this dark time, yes, there is something that's beautiful in this sense of this showing of like a light of what's coming. And so that really stuck with me, like that image of there's these flowers, and yes, there was snow on the ground around them and stuff, but there would be like daisies that made me feel hope that yes, this is going to get better and stuff. So that's the biggest thing that I can see of hope right now. And I'm trying to hold on to that as much as possible, because there are so many things that are not the same right now because of COVID. And there are so many things that we can't be doing always because of COVID. So I think that's important to realize that yes, we are going to get through this. It's hard to know exactly how we're going to get through it, but to know that like God has a plan for the future and what is going to happen is really reassuring for me personally right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I love those daisies too, because so often you heard about the death and the illness, and it's important that we understand that, but it is also important to see those signs, right? So I agree. So you guys, with same thing with online classes, going to online worship has been a whole just a controversial thing for people who feel different levels of comfort about when we should be open for in-person when and things like that. And what's given me hope through that is this year we've still received new members, we've still had some baptisms, and we've still seen financial support for both our church and for a drive we did for hygiene products for local food pantries, and we've seen that come through in incredible ways, and that is really awesome. And for me personally, there's another scripture passage from Luke that is really meaningful to me, and it's one of the first times that Jesus teaches publicly, and he says, "The Spirit of the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor, to proclaim release to the captives, recovery of sight to the blind, let the oppressed go free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." And, in spite of this year, the unrest and the violence that's been a part of the story of 2020 as well, the fact that so many people this year were so concerned about these injustices that we witness, these really difficult realities for some of us, and so many people rose up and one way or another and said, I this is not okay with me. Some of what's going on in the world is not okay with me, and I want to do something about it. And that looks different for different people, but the conversations that people were engaging in, the listening and the learning over the summer, especially, that was really, really wonderful. A lot of what went on there. So that gives me hope.
So you all know, one of the reasons that I wanted to introduce this language of what matters to me and why is to help give each of us an opportunity to in some way build a backbone, to think and to have some strength to step out and to step into the world. There's already been requests. Let's have a Muslim gathering. Let's have a Catholic gathering. Let's maybe do a Jewish. Let's do an atheist agnostic. All different voices down in the fall, from the fall now into the spring term. So I'm anxious for you all to ask what does matter and why, and be able to place that, because you all talked about light. And on the 4th of December at 7 o'clock Friday night, we'll have lessons and carols. It'll be virtual. It's going to be wonderful. The tech teams are scissoring and pasting it all together. But that tradition that's rooted in our life here reflects something that matters. And it's those themes that you've been talking about. I asked you also to remember Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, that great line that I use regularly at lectures. Do you have a word for young people? And to a certain degree, you've been talking about that all along, but Rabbi Heschel was asked that at the end of his life. Thankfully, that is not the case for the three of you. You all have long years ahead, thankfully. But Lorraine, for your peers, do you have a word for your peers? Anna, as a pastor, do you have a word that would help think about what life is about? And Dean, you represent our faculty and carry us in your academic role, but also as part of the senior life of the administration. So Heschel's question is really relevant. Do you have a word to young people?
The word that I would do would be perseverance. Just because there's so much that we as young people have had to go through in our lifetimes, but we've shown perseverance through all this. We've shown perseverance in working with the Black Lives Matter movement, or this election, or through COVID, or through online learning. There's so many different things that we've showed perseverance through. And I think that that's just really important for us to continue to show is perseverance.
Thank you.
Scott, you just want one word?
It's impossible for preachers.
Oh, well, we'll see. Lorraine.
Heschel's response was not one word.
Okay. I think Lorraine did well, though. I liked that one word focus. Because now it's challenging me, which is good. I guess, I'm not sure how many students are on the call, but I really wanted to bring up that story because college was a challenging time for me. And it was a time when I was figuring out a lot about myself. And so I guess my word for the young people would be simply to know that you are loved, even if there is a day where it doesn't feel like it. And that that is really important to me, because there were days when I was really worried about whether or not I was making the right decisions. And the thing that was most important was that I had something to share with the world. And I just needed to take care of myself so that I could do that. And that's what I try to teach to my high schoolers now, to make sure they know that there's nothing too weird that they can't talk to me about. That it's reaching out for help sometimes is one of the strongest and most important things you can do, and it's one of the bravest things you can do, because then you show that you want to get better. So I pass that on.
Okay, great.
So I have a blended family. So I have 3 stepkids and 3 of my own kids, and I have three sons of my own there. So the oldest is Adam, the middle son is Jonah, and the youngest son is Micah. And when they were young, we had them in the children's center through our church. Actually, they had a daycare and a early childhood kind of program there. And there's a story which is true, of my youngest son Micah, when they were at what was called the Rainbow Center, and they had their gospel lessons and other kinds of things in the morning. But during the course of the day, a really big storm came rolling in, And so all the kids kind of had to go into one room and huddle down. And one of the, as the teacher relayed this to me, one of the kids that was a kind of a classmate with my youngest son, Micah, he was probably 5 at the time, was really upset and really scared by the storm. And so my son Micah got up, walked over to him, knelt down next to him and said, "Be not afraid, God loves you." And you know, we've read this throughout the Bible, right? You know, do not fear, you know, be not afraid. And I've read it 1,000 times, and it wasn't until that story was relayed to me that you know, the realness of that, how we can live our lives through fear and being afraid of a lot of things, and for all kinds of different reasons. And so I've come back to that story a lot, and so that's my message. You know, be not afraid. God loves you.
Thank you, Dean. It's a little bit before 5, and I know Pastor Anna needs to get to teach, and I know dinner is coming, and I'm also inviting you all to remember to wear your fabulous mask. Take care of yourself and each other. For those of you who would like to, my email is at the top. I'd appreciate any comments that you could send to me, and if you're interested in helping organize some of the other gatherings, we'll be doing this obviously in January and into spring term. I've already noticed one person's texted me and said, "What's Heschel?" Here it is. It's part of it. It's not the whole. To live your life as if it were a work of art. That there is meaning in the absurdity. And he's reflecting on the Holocaust. As you know, he was plucked from the Holocaust. That there is meaning, that there is purpose, and that each of you has a beautiful life to offer. Will you join me in thanking our 3 panelists by hands up or all the ways you can to thank them that are here? Thank the 3 of you very much. Lorraine has put up the SLC email so you can be in touch with her, especially the students. Always inviting students to be a part of the umbrella work of building an interfaith life. Thank you especially for the faculty that joined. It's always good to see your shining faces. And it's Thanksgiving. We have lots to think about and take care of each other on that. But blessings to all of you. Thank you again, and strength and blessings. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.